Hi. How you doing? Okay.
Yeah, mate, never better.
Great. Great. I wondered if I could just
What?
have just a little chat.
What
You know,
about? Here, you're not from the council, are you? Are you a plainclothes cop? Look, you can't have me arrested for begging, because I'm not. I'm not begging, okay? Look, see that pot? That's money I've earned today. That's money from busking. I'm not a beggar, okay?
No, I'm not from the council.
Seriously? You look like you might be.
No, I'm not from the council. Because I mean, if I was from the council, I'd have like one of those things with like I'm from the council on it, but I haven't got one. See?
So who the hell are you then?
Well, I'm a playwright.
A playwright? You don't look like one.
Well, what is a playwright? Well, look, now I'm not from the council, and I'm not an undercover cop. I'm writing a play about the homelessness crisis in this city to raise awareness, and I just wanted to tell your story by way of research. Put your side of things across. How does that sound? It's for a good cause.
Well, I suppose, if you're sure you're kosher, what harm can it do? I'm sorry, mate, I didn't mean to have a go at you. I just found one of these this morning and I thought you were about to move me on.
What's that?
That is a sodding public space protection order, which someone from the council very kindly stuck under my sleeping bag while I was asleep last night, because according to them, I'm officially a rough sleeper. That's why I have to make out I'm a street musician first and foremost. I just happen to be sleeping here at night as well at the moment. This is a fine for 100 smackers. What the hell is the point of that? I'll only have to busk for more money to pay it, and if I don't cough up, I'll be branded a criminal and either end up in the nick or be clobbered with £1,000 penalty. It's one of the new methods local councils are using to clear rough sleepers out of public spaces, because we're an eyesore, a blot on their city's beautiful landscape. They don't bother using the Vagrancy Act of 1824 to get rid of us anymore. That well-known 190-odd-year-old piece of legislation. Ha! I know my rights, though. The Home Office guidance is not to target homeless people with PSPOs, and yet the council is still doing it. Since when was it an offence to be down on your luck and lying in a doorway having to busk for a living? Actually, prison sounds like a nice idea compared to being out here. At least I get a nice comfy bed to sleep in and proper hot meals every day. It's the worst thing about being on the streets. You really miss your creature comforts. Having to put up with the freezing cold or unbearable heat. Worrying all the time about when you're going to get out of all this shit. I didn't mean to get a bit aggro just now. This kind of life makes you like that, because you feel like the whole bloody world is against you sometimes. You don't know who you can trust or talk to half the time. It's dangerous out here for us. We get attacked and abused practically every day. You're not kidding about it being a crisis, mate.
Would you mind if I ask you some personal questions?
I've got nothing to hide. I'm not an illegal immigrant, so no one can nick me for that. Not like some of the other sleepers out here. They won't tell you any personal stuff in case it gets back to the Home Office. They set up a secret programme, the Rough Sleeper Support Service, asking homeless charities who check up on rough sleepers to send their personal information, such as their nationality, directly to the Home Office without their consent. They say it's so the immigrants can get better support. That's bollocks, though. They just want to kick them out of the country quicker and easier.
So, how do you come to be homeless here? I mean, what is your life like as a homeless person? What's your day-to-day life like?
Ha! What do you think it's like? It's hardly a walk in the bleeding park, is it? What's in it for me then? Just don't offer to buy me a Subway. I don't need any more food tonight. Someone just bought me a Nando's, but I've eaten it all, so I can't offer you any chips. Sorry. You'll have to buy me a few cans instead. This is my last but one. Or a packet of fags, so I don't have to go dimp picking in the gutters later.
Right. Okay.
Well then, what are you waiting for? I haven't got all day.
Well,
Go on, ask away.
would you mind if I recorded it on my phone? Just makes it easier to write up later on.
Yeah.
Great. So how is it you come to be here? Why do you choose this particular doorway?
Well, the best spots always get taken early, so you have to bag them quick before anyone else does. I've been here a couple of weeks now, and if I budge, I've got to pay someone else to guard it for me. Once you've pitched up with all your gear, most other rough sleepers accept that's your spot. Although the council obviously have a slightly different view. So what? We got to sleep somewhere, haven't we? Most of the time there's nowhere else to go. Some of us end up sleeping in a giant wheelie bin or a skip, especially when it's cold. Any port in a storm, eh? This is a particularly good spot because there's a lot of footfall, especially on market days, Wednesdays and Saturdays. You make the most money then. Not that I make a fortune. I'm lucky if I get 50 quid a day. You've heard that story too, about fake beggars earning 200 quid a day. Ha! Not around here they're not. The locals may be well off, but that only makes them some of them even more stingy. Ironic, innit? I like it here, because there's always something interesting going on. When I'm not sleeping, that is, which is what I do most of the time. It's a bit like watching reality TV. You got the world and his wife out and about, shopping, talking, eating, laughing. Oh. Having an argy-bargy. Getting on with their busy, busy lives. Too busy to look twice at people like me. I might as well be invisible. If they do notice me, it's with a look of disgust, like I'm a piece of shit on their shoe. Like I have no right whatsoever to be here, sitting on a piece of cardboard, wrapped in a blanket, taking up space, putting my dirty, filthy self on public view in their beautiful, clean city. How dare he? Like I'm a stain on the scenery. Oh yeah, I know what's going through their minds as they look down their noses at me. Some of them even spit at me or throw food at me. Now that's disgusting. What have I done to deserve that? I had to move from the last place I was sleeping in because some drunken idiot who was staggering past one night decided to have a pop at me and kick me in the stomach. That bloody hurt. I was in agony for hours. I had to go to A&E in the end. He didn't give a shit though. He only did it because I'm vulnerable, see? You hear about it a lot from the other sleepers out here. Still, at least no one's pissed on me. Well, not yet anyway. This doorway's got a nice wide frontage, which is a lifesaver when it's chucking it down with torrential rain, like it was a few weeks ago. I was in a different spot then, out in the open, no proper shelter. My sleeping bag and cardboard, all my clothes got soaking wet. Took ages for them to dry out properly. I was shivering and sneezing for days after that. And then you get the other extreme. A week later it was really hot, about 30 degrees. I couldn't sit down for long, even on all my sleeping gear. The heat coming up from the pavement was like a furnace. I nearly passed out from sunstroke. Luckily, another sleeper took pity on me, moved me into the shade, gave me some water. It's really dangerous out here when it's like that. Special change, please. Oh, thank you, love. God bless. Have a lovely evening. Take care. This building behind me used to be a major high street department store. Closed down 3 years ago now, like a lot of shops on this high street. Woolworths, Steamer Trading, even flipping Pound World, would you believe? Mind you, the locals weren't sorry to see that go under because it brought the tone right down. I remember the public outcry when it first opened. We can't have a Pound World here. Pound World's only open in poor deprived areas. Surely there's been a mistake. It was headline news on the front page of the local paper, as if the apocalypse itself was coming. Mind you, people soon stopped moaning when they realised how much money they could save. Weren't too posh to shop there then, were they? There's a big problem in this city now. The rents and business rates are sky high because they did away with rent controls when they deregulated the market in the late 80s. You've got shops closing, pubs closing, all over the city. And popping up in their place, you've got your estate agents, coffee shops, nail bars, and hotels, would you believe? Ha! Which is deeply ironic considering there isn't enough hostel space or social housing for people like me at the bottom of the pile. Somebody somewhere is making a bloody fortune out of it all. And I should know, I used to work in the building game. I was a builder and a property developer and a landlord. A good one, mind you. Not like these dodgy ones who rip the tenants off with sky-high rents or serve them a Section 21 eviction order just because they moaned about mould in the bathroom, or even worse, rats or cockroaches. That's just spiteful and nasty, isn't it? Dishing out no-fault eviction notices, just so they can hike the rents up every few months. Making families have to choose between rent and food. Parents having to go without meals just so the kids can eat. Families need security and stability. Kids shouldn't have to be moving around all the time, having to cope with all the stress and anxiety. Oh, speaking of evictions, I had a visit from one of the council's housing officers a few days ago. We had a nice little chat.
Good morning. I'm the housing officer from the council.
Right. Got any proof of ID?
Yes, I do actually. Here you are.
Right, so what are you here for?
I'm here to inform you that demolition work to the building behind you is scheduled to begin next week and that you are required to permanently leave the area before the demolition contractors arrive next Monday at 8 a.m.
Ha! You're kicking me off the premises?
Well, we are obliged to inform you of any impending demolition works for your own safety, so you don't sustain any actual physical harm.
Oh, thank you very much. How kind of you.
Should you require any further information, you can always phone the council during office hours or go online to the council website.
Great, I'll just whip my laptop out, shall I?
Or you can always visit the council offices over the road should you wish to consult with any of our development officers.
I think you've said all I need to hear. I've got the message, loud and clear.
Good. Right then.
So what are they going to put there instead?
Well, the planning application is for a hotel.
Another one? There's already a Premier Inn next to it. You know, the place that used to be a McDonald's.
Well, there is a business need.
Business, of course. Where's that all?
Yes, that's all.
Ta-ta then.
Goodbye.
Have a nice day. I couldn't really blame her. She was just doing her job. So I'm on the move again, just as I was settling in here as well. Couple of weeks is a long time in one place for a rough sleeper. The council don't like us being here. We're a reminder that the system isn't working. They try and move us away from public spaces so people like you don't have to look at us and see at first hand how the homeless crisis is getting worse and worse every single day. They use all manner of tactics. 24/7 constant bagpipe playing, spikes on park benches, putting boards up, you name it. When they had that royal wedding in Windsor recently, the council asked the police to clear the streets of rough sleepers before the event using the Vagrancy Act. As if we're rubbish to be disposed of in the weekly bin collection. I mean, where's the compassion? How can that be the right way to talk about homeless people? We're human beings, not pieces of trash. Like when that Tory MP bloke called a homeless charity in Westminster a magnet for undesirables. You know, the one who was suspended for frog marching a female Greenpeace activist out of the Mansion House speech by the scruff of her neck. That's no way to talk when you're a public servant. Making it sound like homeless people should carry a government health warning. The media don't exactly help either, influencing the way the public see us, portraying us as filthy, unworthy, parasitical lowlifes who somehow deserve our situation. They dehumanise us. So people like you don't have to feel guilt or compassion when you're walking past. Because when you feel that, it means something has to be done about it. Spare some change, please, mate. Oh, you're a star. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. God bless. Some days I get quite good money here. Some days I don't. It varies. Not everyone in this city is a stingy bastard. Some people buy me takeaways. Burgers, pizzas, kebabs. I don't ask them to. They just feel sorry for me. And to be honest, I'll take what I've given. Didn't used to eat a lot of junk food back in the day. And I was certainly a lot healthier then. But I guess the public think rough sleepers need feeding up. And it does fill me up. And when you've got sod all else to do during the day, it helps to make the day pass quicker. Like the booze and the fags. And this guitar I got from the charity shop for £5. Bargain, eh? But if I don't eat enough, the hunger pangs keep me awake at night. And then I don't sleep properly, and then everything gets messed up, and then I fall asleep all day, and then I miss eating regular meals. It's a total nightmare. My routine gets totally screwed up. So I eat whatever I can, just to keep me going. If I'm really starving, I go to the local homeless drop-in day centre. Food's not bad, considering they have to make do with whatever donations they get from local supermarkets and the like. Mind you, last week when I dropped in, they served up some really dodgy-looking chicken meatballs in tomato sauce. You know, the tin stuff they make from the scraps they sweep up off the factory floor. A few years ago, I would have turned my nose right up at it. But I was so ravenous, I just shoved it down my neck. Funny, innit? How people think that because I'm a rough sleeper, I only eat junk food and takeaways. How would they know? I've dined in some of the most expensive restaurants in London. Taken afternoon tea at the Ritz. Sipped Cristal champagne at the Waldorf. Ordered ridiculously expensive cocktails at Sushi Samba at the top of the Heron Tower, where I didn't bat an eyelid at paying 500 quid on a meal for two. You don't believe me, do you? Mind you, I did have a terrible experience at the Shard. Appalling service, lukewarm food, undersized portions. Not what you expect when you're paying through the nose for fine dining in a restaurant halfway up the tallest building in Europe. Now that's what I call a towering rip-off. Ha! When I complained bitterly, the manager refused, point blank, to take anything off the bill. So that's definitely the last time I'm going there. Well, wouldn't exactly get in now, would I? You're looking at me and thinking, what a load of bollocks, aren't you? Just goes to show you shouldn't judge people by their appearance. I appreciate it's difficult to believe me, looking like this, but every rough sleeper's got a story. You just got to find it out. Oh, spare some change please, mate. Thank you. God bless. Have a nice evening. I never imagined in a million years this would happen to me. Sitting here in these clothes, in this situation. You probably think I'm a total loser who had it coming. A druggie, a criminal, or a raving nutcase. Well, I'm not. I've still got all my marbles. And I'm not some no-mark who never made anything of his life. Let me tell you. Just had a very, very difficult time. Fallen through a few cracks. Let me tell you my story. I need to explain. Not too many years ago, my life was completely different. In fact, I'd say it was pretty much perfect. And isn't it always the way that just when you think life's perfect, the last thing you expect is for it to go tits up and wind up a total bleeding mess? And you can't say I blame the parents. Don't even start on that one. I had the best family anyone could wish for, and a loving, happy, stable home. Nothing fancy, mind you. I mean, we weren't exactly rolling in it. Well, it was the 70s after all. Faded memories of us boys in our flares, riding around town on chopper bikes, watching Multicoloured Swap Shop on Saturday mornings, listening to ABBA records blaring out on my sister's turntable. I grew up in an average 3-bed semi in the poor part of town. Me, my older sister, my mum, who was a nurse, my dad, who was a factory floor manager. Oh, and the dog. But Dad was so creative. He could turn his hand to anything if he had to. I remember watching him and his best mate build a greenhouse in the back garden, fitting the glass panes and the wood together, the smell of the putty. Mum baking in the kitchen or tending her vegetable patch, her warm smile, her cheeky sense of humour. Ah, the golden summers that lasted forever. I was born lucky, gifted one in the family, cocky, smart, with an answer for everything and a burning desire to make it big. We lived round the corner from the posh road, where the well-off people lived in big detached houses with swimming pools. One summer I made friends with some of the rich kids. We had so much fun together, splashing around in the pools. Spending time with them only made me even more determined to be just like them. It brought out my competitive streak. I dreamt of having my own big look-at-me house with a pool. That dream became the focus for all my ambition, pushing me along the road to success. I was determined to become wealthy and powerful, someone important. But how? I saw my chance when I heard about the new estate they were starting to build in the northeast of the city in the late 70s. The local farmer had sold 120 acres of greenbelt land for new homes, so there was a huge demand for brickies. It was extremely controversial at the time. My mum got right worked up about it.
Here, you know that new estate they're building over the way? It's a disgrace. I've seen bigger rabbit hutches. And they're building far too many houses and all over the greenbelt. Oh, it'll ruin this area.
Mum, really? Who cares about the greenbelt? We need more homes in this city. I'm 18. I need a job. I need the money.
It's still a disgrace.
Yes, Mum. So I applied for a job and started the following week. Actually, it wasn't just about the money for me. Construction fascinated me and I was hungry to learn. I quickly discovered an innate talent for laying up a wall in next to no time. Oh, I'll never forget the pride we felt, creating a building that someone someday would call a home. From that moment, I knew for sure my career would be in the property game. I worked as a brickie for 4 more years until the new estate was finished and the work ran out. I wanted to stay in the building trade, but in a job with better prospects and more money. A mate of mine suggested quantity surveying as a good career. He could see I was determined to climb the property ladder, as it were. So I got myself qualified and started working for a local surveying firm, where I met my missus. She was working there as a secretary. We were young and in love. She wanted to settle down and start a family. So we got married and thought about buying our first home, like you did in your 20s back then. Well, it was the 80s and the government were encouraging everyone to buy their own homes. Kids these days can't afford to do that, not with house prices as ridiculously high as they are around here anyway. A mate of mine called Nigel had set up his own estate agency in town. And because I was always on the lookout for ways to make more money, we came up with this neat little system. He would tip me off when a property was coming onto market needing renovation, and I would use my surveying skills to assess the cost of refurb and resale value. Then I'd make a 30% below market value offer, buy and renovate the property, and then resell it through Nigel's agency. That way he got his cut and I made a tidy profit too. It was a win-win. So when he gave me the nod about a rundown 2-bed flat in the centre of town, I leapt all over it. I did it up in my spare time while my missus and me lived in it. When she announced she was expecting, we upgraded to a 3-bed semi, which Nigel would also put my way as a potential money spinner. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. A tried and tested formula for loads of money. When the government introduced the buy-to-let scheme in 1996, I knew I had to get in on it right at the start of the cycle, just as house prices were on the rise. God, that was a crazy time. People snapping up property left, right and centre. The market was skyrocketing. I had 3 posh flats in my portfolio, renting them out for a fortune. I was still on top money at the surveying firm, and together with the rental income, the money was rolling in. Things were cushy. And now that we had 3 kids who all wanted their own bedroom, we upgraded again. This time to a 5-bed detached executive home in an exclusive cul-de-sac. I'll never forget the day we moved in. That feeling of complete and utter satisfaction and pride. I'd finally made it. I'd arrived. Yeah, I really did have it all. Golf club and gym membership, designer clothes and shoes, 3 holidays a year, fine dining in fancy restaurants, a cellar full of classic wine and rare whiskey, a designer kitchen from one of those swanky outfits on the hill. Oh, and a pool in the garden. The wife had her RAV4, I had my Range Rover. The kids went to private school. Yeah, I know. Ha. The wife didn't need to work anymore. She spent her leisure time riding horses or walking our two Weimaraners. That's a pedigree dog, by the way. I left the surveying firm and set up a property development joint venture business along with 3 other builder mates doing commercial to residential. That is converting old pubs or offices into houses of multiple occupation or flats. I was working 12 hours a day, most Saturdays too. I was so determined to give my family the very best I possibly could. I didn't mind the long hours, it was worth it. We were making an absolute mint. Ha! But as soon as the money came in, out it went again. Strange, isn't it? How easy it is to take the good times for granted. When the money's rolling in and you're on the upward curve. The world really was my lobster, Rodney. And there was nothing on the horizon that looked like it could even remotely knock me off course, take anything away from me, or bring me down. I was drunk on the power of my super-inflated, fast-spending, high-maintenance lifestyle. I'd reached the pinnacle of all my childhood ambitions. Everything I'd ever wanted from life was sitting right there in the palm of my hands. Not that you want to look at them, the state they're in. Oh. Spare some change, please. Please? Oh, thank you. That's very kind. God bless. Have a lovely evening. And so it was that around that time, my luck began to run out. Things started to go downhill. One afternoon, I was driving round Sainsbury's car park looking for a space. Mum called me on the mobile, so I pulled over by the recycling bank to pick up. Grandad had died about an hour ago. It wasn't a shock. He was 94 after all, a tough old gipper and no mistake. When she hung up, I suddenly felt incredibly sad. But didn't cry. I just sat there in the car, watching all the people dumping their plastic and newspaper into the containers. The funeral came and went, didn't really bother me. And after that, we didn't talk about it at all. Life carried on as normal, work was crazy busy, and I didn't even give it much thought, except for the odd time when I wasn't feeling quite as chipper as usual. I just pushed it to the back of my mind. I didn't have time to grieve. And what is grieving anyway? I mean, really, how do you actually grieve? The following year, my wife's parents died within 6 months of each other. Her dad from lung cancer, her mum from breast cancer. It was a terrible time for us all. But my wife took it really badly. She adored her parents, absolutely doted on them. She had to go on antidepressants just to get her through each day. I knew she wanted to stay strong for the kids, but I could tell that deep down she was really struggling to cope. It was all just overwhelming her. One day, me and the kids came home from the park and found her sitting on the sofa, just staring at the curtains in the lounge, tears streaming down her face. When you're young and life's bursting with joy, you never expect death or loss will affect you. That kind of shit happens a lot later on, or to other people. And anyway, if you did, you'd cope. You wouldn't go under. You'd live to fight another day. Until one day, that kind of shit does happen. To you. My dad used to tease me, Mum, because she'd always had what he called terrible flatulence, which had got a lot worse lately. He used to call her Fanny Fartars, just as a joke. Well, she did eat a lot of vegetables. But none of us knew it was a symptom of bowel cancer until it was too late. She'd had other telltale symptoms, you know the sort, when she'd been to the loo. But she was too embarrassed to tell anyone until it got too painful to ignore. She had an operation to cut the cancer out and then more tests. But the cancer had already spread to her liver and it was just a matter of time. If only she'd gone to the doctors earlier, they might have been able to save her. Broke my heart. Watching her slowly deteriorate month after month until the final few weeks when she was barely conscious. She went into a hospice then so she could pass with grace and dignity. My last memory is of her lying in bed, hooked up to a permanent morphine drip. Dad, sis, me and the family surrounding her, holding hands, saying our final goodbyes, praying. She was always so warm and loving and supportive, Mum. I couldn't imagine my life without her. All that death around me, year after year, did my head in. Ah, shit! Ah, shit! Shit, that hurt! Ow, fuck! God! Ah! Ah! I have to drink to take the pain away, but it comes back every single day. world was suddenly cold and dark. All the joy and happiness wiped out. I had this heavy weight pressing on my chest all the time that I couldn't shake off. I felt like I'd been cut off from everything around me. I couldn't sleep properly. Had these terrible nightmares falling through the air, never landing on the ground. At work during the day, I was so tired, I couldn't think straight. My head was throbbing. Couldn't make sense of all the details. Just this great big empty hole inside me. My wife found her own way of coping with her grief. She talked things through with her friends and the kids, like women do. I couldn't talk to anyone. Most of my mates were builders or tradesmen. I didn't want to talk to anyone anyway, not even my sister or my dad. It just felt wrong. So I tried to deal with the sadness on my own. My wife, bless her, she tried her best to get me to talk about how I was feeling, but every time she brought it up, I shut her down. I refused to discuss it. I wasn't ready. The pain was still too raw. She asked me to get some counselling, but I ignored her. Blokes don't do counselling. It's for wimps, innit? Huh. It was hard getting up in the mornings. I had no energy. At work, I was just going through the motions. All my drive and motivation had gone out the window. I was working on a big commercial to resi contract in the Midlands and spent most of my time up there in a hotel. In the evenings, I'd go to the pub or hotel bar. I couldn't stand being alone in my room. I was drinking more and more to unwind after work, to blot out the pain, the loneliness of being separated from my wife and kids. I was losing my grip on reality. My whole life was disintegrating and there wasn't anything I could do to stop it. A few months later, I finished the contract and got back to the usual routine at home, on the surface at least. But things had changed between my wife and me. She didn't want to talk to me much. And when we did talk, our conversations were short and awkward. There were no arguments, no big emotional scenes. The silence between us was deafening. She seemed like a stranger I'd never really known. Our sex life dried up, so I moved into the spare room. Eventually, she asked me for a divorce and there was no going back. So I gave her and the kids the house, half my savings, what little there was of them, 2 of the rental flats by way of alimony, and moved into the one that was left. Funny, innit? The things we prefer not to discuss in our society. Money, for instance. How much we earn. How much our house is worth. What political party we support. What religion we belong to. Whether we're gay or straight. And then there's death. Why do we never really talk about death? After the banking crisis in 2008, the recession hit my property business hard. The housing market was tanking, mortgage lenders were going bust, and the banks weren't lending any money, all of which meant I got into cash flow problems with all the development projects I had on the go. I defaulted on payment for one contractor, so he had a hissy fit and walked off the job. I had to take him to court for breach of contract. It was a massive legal case that went on for over a year. In the end, he won the case, so I was liable for legal fees. Because my savings didn't even come close to covering it, I had no choice but to sell my flat to pay the costs and move into a rented one instead. Did my head in, having to deal with all the lawyers and the mountains of paperwork and eye-watering bills. I tell you, it nearly finished me off. I'd had enough of the property development game altogether by then, so I sold my share in the joint venture business and signed up for work as a contract brickie. I just wanted to ditch all the stress and responsibility and get back to some kind of childhood bliss. Memories of coming home to mum's cooking after a day's bricklaying on the building site when I was a lad. Happy. Carefree. In the building game, Fridays are known as Poets' Day. That's piss off early tomorrow's Saturday, when builders head to the pub at 2 in the afternoon and get wasted after a week of hard graft. Now that I was back working as a brickie, I became a regular at the local, and the afternoon drinking carried on well into the evenings. When the contract work was patchy, I'd head to the pub, spending hours in there, filling the day, chatting to anyone who'd listen to me, spending a fortune on booze. I knew my life was going off the rails, but I couldn't be asked getting it back on track. I just let it all go. I was unreliable at work because of the hangovers that went into lunchtime the next day. I'd show up late, or not at all if I'd had a particularly heavy session. Nothing could stop the unseen forces that were hell-bent on destroying me, crushing me, stripping me of every last thing I loved and cherished. Alcohol was my only pleasure. I was drinking so much the days and nights blurred into one long continuous haze. Some days the hangovers were so chronic I couldn't get out of bed. Weekends lost in total oblivion, out of my skull. Eventually, the site manager sacked me. Spare some change, please, love. Oh, thank you. Thank you. God bless. Take care. My brickie mates told me straight I was screwing my life up, I should go to the doctors for a liver checkup and change my lifestyle. I laughed it off and decided I needed to change my mates. But one morning I woke up in agony. My stomach was killing me. I couldn't breathe properly and I threw up what looked like a bit of blood. That frightened the life out of me. So I got an emergency doctor's appointment. They did some blood tests. The GP looked at me disapprovingly. He didn't mince his words either.
Based on your presenting symptoms and your current lifestyle, I'll need to do an MRI scan of your liver and a biopsy to check for possible cirrhosis.
Am I going to die?
Eventually, yes. Quite soon if you carry on the way you are.
How soon?
Could be days, weeks, months. Won't know for certain till I've got the biopsy and test results back.
Right.
Why don't you just stop drinking?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be here, would I?
I'm going to sign you up for our local drug and alcohol services, or you can attend voluntarily at Alcoholics Anonymous. Whichever you prefer, the choice is up to you. In the meantime, take this to reception. I'll organise a scan and results for you. We'll see you once they're back. And in the meantime, I suggest that you cut down on your alcohol consumption as much as possible.
There was a distinct weariness in his voice. I couldn't blame him. He must see wasters like me every day of his life. Thanks. I went to reception, like he said, but there was a noisy row going on between what looked like a rough sleeper and the woman behind the desk. He was trying to get registered at the surgery so he could see a GP, but she wasn't having any of it because he didn't have a fixed address. She was telling him to go to A&E instead. I stood there for a few minutes, listening to them having a go at each other. But then I couldn't be bothered anymore, so I walked outside into the sunshine. It was a lovely day, and I really fancied a pint. I stood there for a while outside the surgery, soaking up the sun, looking at the letter the doctor had given me. I chucked the letter in a nearby bin and set off for the pub. I knew I had a drink problem, but I didn't need any of that Alcoholics Anonymous shit. It wasn't that bad. I hadn't reached rock bottom yet. All I needed was a couple of pints and a packet of codeine. I haven't seen my kids for a few months now. After my divorce, I used to have them to stay with me every other weekend. But when I lost my bricklaying job and the drinking took over, the wife refused to let me see them at all. She said it was in their best interests. I was an alcoholic and unfit to look after them. I can't tell you how much I miss them. I just want to cuddle them. Give them a hug. Oh, it's killing me. The night I was sacked, I was angry, stressed out. I needed something stronger than a pint and quick. I bought a bottle of vodka from the corner store, swigging it and weaving my way across the park towards Burger King. I sat in the corner at the back, eating my burger, talking to myself, still knocking the vodka back, not giving a shit if anyone saw me. The manager called the police, who escorted me from the premises. Took away the bottle as well. It was almost empty anyway. Somehow I got a taxi back into the flat, fell into bed and slept right through until mid-afternoon. Spare some toast, please. Thank you. Thank you both. Have a lovely evening. All dressed up to the nines. Going somewhere posh, no doubt. It got easier and easier to fall into the habit of waking up late in the afternoon and then start drinking again, and finally crash into bed off my face. The landlord hiked the rent up, and because my benefit was frozen and I'd spent nearly all my savings on booze, I fell into arrears. So he served me a Section 8 eviction order. My sister offered to let me stay in her spare room, but after a few months she asked me to leave. She couldn't deal with the disruption my drink problem was causing. It wasn't fair on her and the kids And me dad, who'd been living with them since Mum died. I'd reached a new low. I was homeless. Excuse me a minute. What's the matter? Where else can I have a slash? I can't go in the local boozer or coffee shop, can I? They won't let me in looking like this. There aren't many public conveniences left in the city. They turned 2 of them into Italian restaurants. Ha! It's enough to put you right off your meatballs in tomato sauce, isn't it? Ha! Things were getting more and more desperate. What was going to happen to me? Was I losing the plot, having a nervous breakdown? Where the hell was I going to end up? I'd never been particularly religious, but now that I was homeless, I had to get to the church. Surely God would hear my prayers and somehow save me. Anything was worth a try, even if I was a non-believer. I sat in the front pew, staring at the altar and stone effigies, trying to beat down the panic that was rising up inside me, but I couldn't. It was overwhelming. My chest was pounding. Tears were pouring down my cheeks. A sudden movement caught my eye. The priest was standing a few feet away, watching me. His voice was calm and quiet, reassuring.
Is there anything I can do to help you?
I don't know. I'm homeless. I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight, how I'm going to survive. I feel like I'm going mad. I just want to end it all right now.
Please, try not to worry. I'm here to help you. I can sense that you are in a lot of pain. That's a heavy burden that you're carrying. I'm going to contact the local homeless action centre. They'll find you a bed to sleep in tonight. It'll be in the wet hostel. But it'll only be a temporary solution.
Okay. Thank you, Father. The wet hostel reeked of alcoholics and druggies, lying around on the floor, out of their heads or picking fights with each other. I stepped over stretched out bodies, wishing I could get out of this living hell and back to normality. I tried to settle down for the night on a mattress, but I couldn't. I was too wired, on high alert. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a crazy druggie lunged at me, rolling his eyes, shouting, swearing, accusing me of nicking his bed. I told him to bugger off and leave me alone. He lifted a syringe above his head, ready to stab me with it. Panicking, I kicked him hard in the chest. He screamed and fell back. I leapt up and punched him hard in the face. 3 times! Blood everywhere. The noise and shouting woke up some of the other inmates, so I grabbed my stuff and legged it out of the hostel. I didn't have a clue where I was going. I just ran off as fast as I could into the dark city night, dodging car headlights that roared past, crossing the park into the public toilet. Thank God there was one left. I locked myself in a cubicle, panting, my chest pounding with fear. I tried to get some rest, grabbing snatches of sleep, drifting in and out of a terrifying nightmare. The crazy druggie with the huge staring eyes and big scary needle. When I woke up a few hours later, I felt like crap. Exhausted, starving, dying of thirst. The memories of the night before came flooding back. That wasn't like me. I wasn't a violent person. I'd never hit anyone in my life. It was self-defense, I told myself. I had to hit him to stay alive. I spent the day wandering the streets, looking for somewhere, anywhere to sleep. I found a few different places thanks to some other rough sleepers, but I was moved on from all of them. Eventually, I pitched up here. And that, my friend, is how I came to be in this spot. Oh. Spare some drink, love. Thank you. God bless. Take care. A few days ago, I was lying here, sleeping off another hangover, when my old mate Nigel, the estate agent, walked past. He must have recognised me because he prodded me to wake me up, the bastard. He was wearing a lilac Ralph Lauren polo shirt, some green chinos and natty shoes, just like I used to. Back in the day, they used to call us the Fashion Twins.
Here, mate. Is that you? You okay? What you doing out here? Here. You're not homeless, are you?
Nice, mate. Bloody hell. Long time no see. Yeah, I'm fine, actually. I was just having a little nap, as it happens. You could say I'm having a few accommodation issues, yeah.
Shit. How long you been on the streets?
A few weeks.
God. Don't mind me saying so, mate. You look a bit rough, a bit yellowy around the chops.
Goes with the territory, Nige.
You lost weight?
Probably.
You want to see a doctor about that, mate? Might be something serious.
Been there, done that.
You don't want to be snuffing it out here, mate.
I'd heard a story on the Rough Sleeper grapevine about one of the homeless alcoholics who used to hang around the town centre. He got taken into hospital with hepatitis C and had given out in hospital after a couple of days. That really freaked me out. I'd only been chatting to him a couple of days before.
Why didn't you get in touch? I had no idea.
Lost my phone. Nige. I think it was stolen while I was at the wet hostel recently.
I'll get you another one, mate.
Oh, thanks, mate, but I can't accept that from you.
Look,
anyway, I'll sort myself out soon. I'll be okay.
Look, I've got an appointment to get to. Look, I'll come back tomorrow, yeah? Check you're all right.
Yeah. If I'm still here. I hated him seeing me like that. Dirty, smelly, broken. Nothing like the man he used to know. I hid my face in my hands, rocking back and forth. I couldn't look him in the eye or tell him how or why I'd ended up here. I just wanted him to bugger off and leave me in peace. As soon as he left, I started crying uncontrollably. What the hell was happening to me? Everything around me was frightening. I couldn't think straight. My head was throbbing. All the noise, the traffic roaring past, people shouting, police and ambulance sirens going off, the pavement rumbling underneath me like an earth tremor. I collapsed down onto the blanket, shaking violently. My eyes were all blurry. But I could just make out a little girl standing there, staring at me. She put a bag of jelly babies next to my pot. Her mum came towards her, calling to come away. She dropped some change in my pot, reached out, and gently squeezed my hand. And then they were gone. The next morning, Nigel woke me up bright and early and took me for a slap-up full English breakfast in a greasy spoon. I'd hardly slept the night before, so I was ravenous. I wolfed it down and felt 10 times better. Nigel and me had been good mates for years, but after my divorce we'd lost contact, so there was a lot to catch up on. Although we'd never discussed any personal stuff, it was easier than I thought it would be to tell him how I'd ended up rough sleeping. Then, out of the blue, he dropped a bombshell.
I've been having therapy.
Therapy? What on earth for?
Had a breakdown last year.
A breakdown? How come?
Remember my old man? Died last summer. His liver packed up on him. And a drink problem. Used to knock me and my mum out when I had too many. And then when he died, it really screwed me up. I felt like topping myself till my wife made me get therapy.
I was gobsmacked. How the hell had I missed that? Nigel and me had been good mates for years, and he'd never once let on about it. Nigel, mate, why'd you never tell me? I would have been there for you.
I couldn't tell anyone, mate. Not even the wife till I had the breakdown. No one had believed me anyway.
Jesus, you must have been through hell keeping all that to yourself.
Men don't talk about feelings. It's weakness, isn't it? We've got to keep it inside, man up, stiff upper lip and all that.
Yeah, mate. I know exactly what you mean. Oh, spare some change, please. No? Okay, no problem. Have a lovely evening. Tight git. Do you know how many rough sleepers there are in this city? They're easy to spot during the day, lurking in obscure alleyways or corners or hanging around in groups with other homeless people. The official number was 11 last November, but that doesn't tell you the real story. There's a lot more than 11 rough sleepers in this city, trust me. The local authority can either do a count or an estimate each year. The estimate is figures given to them by charity outreach workers, the people who check up on us on a daily basis. But if they decide to do a count instead, and they do it on a freezing cold November night when a lot of sleepers will be inside somewhere, even if it's a rubbish skip or a wheelie bin, trying to keep warm, running the risk of being tipped into a refuge truck and crushed by the compactors, of course the numbers are going to be down. Stands to reason, doesn't it? Now you see us, now you don't. So the authority can then report back to the government that they've reduced the number of sleepers. Crisis? What crisis? It's an effing joke. There's more rough sleepers in London than anywhere else because there's not enough shelters or hostel space. A couple of years ago, near Christmas time, a Hungarian man collapsed and died in a tube station underpass near the Houses of Parliament where he'd been rough sleeping. He'd been drinking heavily, but he'd been given a cigarette laced with spice. When his friends found him, his lips were blue. So they tried to give him CPR, By the time the emergency services arrived, he'd gone. Choked on his own vomit. He was 45. He'd been turned away that night at the shelter because it was full. He could have survived if they'd let him in. Just think, all those MPs walking past him every day on their way to work. There's a little memorial to him set up by his friends in the underpass. The first week I was homeless, I was so desperate to talk to another human being. I hung about near a group of sleepers who were congregating near the civic centre, hoping they'd notice me and invite me to join them. One young lad, about 25 years old, saw me, waved me over. He offered me a can of cider and a fag, and we swapped stories. He'd been kicked out of his rented flat when the landlord put the rent up because his housing benefit didn't cover the increase. He ended up sleeping in a tent in the woods. One day, whilst walking, he saw a dead body hanging from a tree. It was a young lad he'd met on the streets a few weeks before. He had to leave the area after that and move to the city. That image just messed too much with his head. Poor bastards. Last week, some well-off do-gooder woman dropped a load of old newspapers next to me while I was having a nap and all. Woke me up. So I wasn't happy to begin with. And come on. Do I look like the type that reads the Daily Mail? Still, you've got to be grateful for what you're given, so I tried my best to show it. Thank you. What are all these for? She looked at me like I was some kind of ignoramus.
Well, to stuff into your clothes, of course, for insulation, for when it gets cold at night. Winter's coming and you need to keep warm. It's a great way to recycle them. And it's a quality newspaper, after all.
I assumed she was referring to the paper grade and not the content. Here's one edition I did keep, because this headline got right on my nerves. Dated 10th of March 2019. Homeless beggars are making 200 quid a day. Adventurer and world record holder Ed Stafford went undercover for 60 days as a rough sleeper for a Channel 4 documentary to reveal what tramps earn. Tramps? He says he put on £11 while living on the streets. That's unbelievable, isn't it? Street life's not some kind of macho game. It's not a personal endurance test to see if you can stick it out on the streets for a couple of months. It's not some Ray Mears or Bear Grylls reality TV survival boot camp. Of course you're going to put weight on if all you have to eat is shitty junk food and you have to sit still all day to beg. And I never made 200 quid a day, mate. Tell me where I need to go to make that and I'm out of here. Jesus! Anyone who thinks life on the streets is all free meals and easy money ought to try living like this for longer than 60 days. Sleepers aren't out here for the fun of it. All I can say is try staying out here when you're that close. That close to ending it all. shit. Not much in the pot this evening. I've been out here a few weeks now. But some of these other sleepers have been here for months. They come and go, in and out of the hostels. Some of them don't want to be rehomed. They just want to die a slow, lingering death. Taking spice and all sorts. You meet some others who are more upbeat. They want to get their lives back to some kind of normality. I've had a lot of time to think since I've been on the streets. I want to sort myself out. I can't carry on like this anymore. I don't want this shit anymore. Winter's only a couple of months away. I don't want to be out here then. I don't want to die out here in the freezing cold. Shit, there's only about a tenner in there. I've got to make more than that to buy some food tomorrow and get into a night shelter. Last time I had a wash and a change of clothes was at the drop-in day centre over a week ago. Oh, Jesus, I smell like shit. I need a shower. I can't think beyond the next 5 minutes. I feel so anxious all the time. The people at the drop-in day centre really help calm me down. They're really friendly. I felt safe there. I don't feel so lonely when I chat to them. It's amazing how you take the simple things in life for granted. Warm, tasty food, hot shower, clean clothes. I saw the priest again this week. I dropped in at the church to apologise for what happened at the wet hostel. We had a good chat. He's arranged for me to stay in a dry hostel in a few days' time. I'll get some counselling for my alcoholism, trying to get my head sorted out, take this weight off my mind. I'll be able to eat better food, start exercising. They'll breath test me every week to make sure I don't fall off the wagon. You're looking at me and thinking, what are you doing then? Still drinking while you're sitting here chatting to me? Right now, this stuff is the only thing that takes the pain away, keeps the chill out, gets me through each day, helps me sleep, takes my mind off all this shit. It's not a life. It's not even an existence. It's like torture. And every day gets that little bit harder. I can't sleep properly out here. I need a decent night's kip. My head's all over the place. The priest took me to visit the dry hostel, introduced me to the staff. There's a housing officer who will look after me when I get there, help me with my recovery. She's offered me a lovely apartment in a nice part of town if I can stay sober and dry for 6 months. Wouldn't that be the best Christmas present ever? It's given me something to hold on to. That dream of having my own place again. Somewhere I can close the door, shut the world out. Somewhere I can just sit and breathe, get some peace and quiet. I need for things to start going right for me again now. I watch all these people walking past, and I just want to be like that again, living an ordinary life. I've seen a lot of rough sleepers with mental health issues out here. Had a tough time, been knocked sideways. Life shit doesn't discriminate. Homelessness can happen to anyone at any time, right when you least expect it. Losing my mum, my wife, my kids, my career, my home. It nearly destroyed me. But that doesn't make me a bad person who deserves to be kicked or spat at or sworn at. How can somebody else judge me if they don't know my story? Every rough sleeper's got a story. This has been mine. Thank you for listening. Sorry, mate. A bit chesty today. Must be the change in the weather this week. Let's hope it's not TB, eh? I'm tired now, mate. I'm going to get my head down, get some kip. I won't be here in a few days, so you'd better bugger off and get that play written. It's not bad, this spot, for a rough sleeper. Not bad at all.